A lot of first responders die within the first few years of retiring.
The fear of providing was the biggest hurdle I had to cross to make the commitment to get out.
First responders have a higher incidence of suicide, whether they're active or retired.
Finances are a big thing to why people do stay longer.
The loss of identity in retirement is devastating.
I struggled for 6 years finding purpose.
The percentage of first responders that retire because of mental health issues is probably a lot higher than we know.
No one has to struggle like this. We have multiple ways to take care of them.
It's a young man's job, it's a young person's job. When you go on a house fire, it's harder to recover on your 2 days off.
If I can't draw my gun, if I can't use my hand the way I'm supposed to, if I can't grab somebody and hold on to them, if I can't even hold a pin for gosh sakes, I cannot continue my law enforcement career.
I was starting to notice that the wheels were falling off the wagon, if you will. And you realize at a certain point that, crawling through a building or climbing ladders, throwing ladders, pulling hose, even something like doing CPR for extended periods, that becomes very hard for your body. And then you find your crew tends to pick up the slack for you.
You may not be doing it intentionally, but when you start to slow down, either mentally or physically, your decision-making skills aren't quite as sharp.
When the doctor, the workers' comp doctor, gave me that news that I could no longer be a police officer, that was very personally devastating to hear.
Traditionally, when it's an early on medical retirement, they aren't prepared for the ending of the career.
And nobody expects to be retired medically. So that is a particularly devastating form of retirement. It's not a voluntary retirement. You're forced out.
I had 22 years of service when I was retired, and I thought, there's no way I have PTSD. And the longer it went on, I finally came to terms with the fact that I'm definitely dealing with PTSD.
So my career only lasted 14 years. I struggled with my mental health throughout my career, developed PTSD, the fear of I was the only one going through it. I'm the only person that is this lost, this broken, this destroyed, this addicted. I thought I was the only one, and that was the biggest lie. Because I quickly learned when I started talking and started opening up to other first responders and doctors and counselors, I learned that, no, this is actually very, very common that our first responders are going through this. It's an epidemic that I think has been ignored for way too long.
And when I went to Police Week, I had a chance to meet cops from all over the world that started talking about some of the issues I have, and I started laughing when I said, you guys get that too? And they said, yeah, we're all messed up. And it actually made me feel better knowing I wasn't alone.
I think every first responder has a mental health component. We don't tend to talk about it enough, and I think the reason we don't talk about it is people don't want to fight their own demons, let alone help someone with theirs.
And by 2014, after 14 years of service, I turned in my medical paperwork because I was depressed, I was suicidal, I was going through a divorce, and I lost all sense and purpose and was attempting suicide at that point in my life.
Many first responders stay on the job perhaps longer than they should because of their financial considerations. They've got children that they're putting through school, they've got mortgages, car payments, things like that.
Am I going to be able to pay my bills? Am I going to be able to live under a retirement-defined pension rather than the money that I make as a police officer?
Every state's different with their pension. Like some of the bigger cities, they probably give them health insurance. We don't get health insurance when we retire, so that's a factor with the financial part of trying to plan.
If you don't have good medical coverage once you retire, you may choose to stay on the job to keep your kids in health insurance, keep your wife in health insurance.
For me though, I was probably gonna stay this long because my son's 13 and I need to get him through high school with health insurance because from my research, it's gonna cost like, I don't know, $1,600 to $2,000 a month.
I had this big fear of not being able to provide for my wife and kids, and it weighed very heavy on me, trying to make a decision of getting out or just taking the risk and trying to make it until I could retire.
You got the financial reasons, so guys stay longer, and then they become a detriment because this is a young man's job.
We are seeing record numbers of early retirement where people are just like, I've had enough. And if we don't take care of our first responders, they will not be there to answer the call.
I watched them take my name with a thread cutter and remove it from my bunker coat and just unceremoniously rip it off the back of my coat. I just found myself ripped apart from the job.
When you have spent 10, 20, 30 years on the job, that is the only thing that you know what to do and how to do. The transition from working to not working is as abrupt and sudden as a car crash.
Right now, I am not a good retired guy. Some of the guys I retired with moved right into that transition very easily, and I was not one of those guys.
So many times we lack structure and routine when we no longer have the job, and we have to now create that, and we're not used to creating that. It was made for us all this time. We had something to wear, we knew where we needed to show up at a certain time, we knew we're gonna do X, Y, and Z to get ready to patrol, we're gonna go out there, and now we don't have that.
All of a sudden, the thrill is gone. There's a rush in running into those kind of incidents and either solving or dealing with it and that sort of thing, and now you retire and there's no rush. There's nothing to fill your time, to fill that adrenaline rush, to fill that endorphin rush.
When you are in a high stress position and you're used to being hard charging, large and in charge, and you suddenly stop, your body does not know what to do. And the number of people who develop a major life-threatening illness in the first 3 years of retirement is staggering.
When they retire, whether it's because they've been in for 20, 30 years or because they've been physically injured or they've got some mental health challenges, they tend to lose their sense of identity. They tend to lose their sense of camaraderie and of fellowship.
I knew I was walking away from something that I loved and walking away from something that was the only job I knew. I guess I didn't realize how much my identity was wrapped up in the fire department.
Your identity, if it's everything you do, it's what people ask you about. Now it's over. It is so devastating to so many retired officers.
When you've done something your entire life because it's your calling, it's your passion, and you don't do it anymore, you need to find a new passion and purpose.
There's a profound loss when in my situation anyway, a profound loss when I left the job. It was just like I walked out the door and I had no purpose.
But when I turned in all my equipment and I walked out of that law enforcement center, I was a man with no purpose. I was a man with no hope, a man with no identity. And the combination of those is a real scary, dark time for first responders to go through.
I miss a lot of the people that I worked with, especially like at the kitchen table or, just the laughter, sharing meals together.
I miss having coffee in the kitchen with the firehouse, at the firehouse with the guys. I miss the camaraderie.
And that lack of camaraderie can be devastating because you have a shared sense of purpose and unique experiences that nobody else does.
I was kind of told by all the officers I worked with that, we're a family, we're a brotherhood. And I felt like all these bonds we created over the years, all the connections and relationships that our families made together, as soon as I retired, it was gone.
It's a little bit of a lonely experience walking out of a firehouse for the last time and knowing that after 40 years, if I want to come back to a firehouse in Aurora, I have to knock on the door.
There's nothing worse than watching a retired firefighter come to the door of a fire station when he walks in and doesn't recognize anybody there.
For a police officer or a fireman, they have been dependent upon the team, that they really have enjoyed that somebody has their back, the idea that there is strength in numbers. And so when those numbers go away, when the team goes away, when somebody no longer has your six, no matter how peaceful your environment is, these people are all of a sudden not feeling very safe.
Yeah, the family dynamic after retirement changes, because up to this point, you had this person that was, for the most part, the breadwinner of the family, bringing home the paycheck, but also not around that much. So now this retiree is around quite a bit, and for better or for worse, that might not always be a positive thing.
So now they're around all the time. There can be times where that can be challenging for the spouse and children now that dad or mom is home and now under their feet 24/7.
They tell each other they're looking forward to the peace. They tell each other they're looking forward to the quiet. But in a sense, they really aren't. And often these people do a lot to fill their time at the expense of their partner or their spouse, and cannot often find the thing that truly fills that space.
Unfortunately, a lot of first responders do get divorced shortly after retiring. You kind of get in this routine where you become roommates. You know, a lot of the love is gone, a lot of the connection's gone. There's a whole new reconnecting that has to happen. And a lot of us first responders have too much guilt and shame to do that. So sometimes the easiest way is just to get to divorce and try to find somebody new.
Getting divorced in retirement is something that's happening with more frequency. The entire phenomenon of gray divorce is a reality.
One of the big things that people struggle with is the finances. The finances of how you're going to support your family.
Where do I get my medical insurance from? Do I get it continued from my agency? Do I get it continued through COBRA? Do I get it continued through my spouse?
So now their depression medication, their anxiety medication, their counseling, their therapy, whatever it may be is gone. Everything's completely turned off.
If you don't have medical insurance, you might not be able to afford therapy, you might not be able to afford the medication, and a lot of mental health meds are expensive. Those medications take a while to build up in your system, but if you stop them cold turkey, they will wreak havoc on your mental health. And that's dangerous for you, that's dangerous for your family, that's dangerous for the people around you, because there's nothing there now to buffer all those PTS symptoms.
A lot of people think when you leave the first responder world, when you leave law enforcement, that your problems go away. And in fact, it's completely opposite. You still have the dreams, you still have the night terrors.
I still wake up 3-4 times a night, most nights. I still dream about the job 4 or 5 nights a week.
Some of the first things that happen with the retired officers is they'll still have dreams about when they're working on the job, and they're very intrusive. They're almost like any other traumatic dream. They're called work dreams. I've been retired for 10 years now, and I still do have them occasionally. It surprises me now when I have them, but it doesn't make them any less stressful, because you wake up because you're stressed out and you're sweating, and you might even be reliving that traumatic call in your dream, and you wake up and it's just as if you were like there a second ago, and all those feelings come back.
Well, when I retired, I didn't even realize I had PTS.
I believe anybody that's truthful, they're going to have some of that residual effect, I guess, after they retire.
When you are exposed to trauma, literally every day, you cannot help but get numb to it. And then when you retire and you slow down, you can experience trauma flooding, where all of that unprocessed trauma comes rushing back, and it can be debilitating.
With my PTSD and a lot of first responders, it stays with you after you retire. It's not something that you hang it up with your uniform when you walk out of the department. Those memories, those thoughts, those addictions that you may have, the relationship struggles, they all continue. And honestly, in my opinion, they get worse.
It's the untreated PTSD that we see the biggest challenge. without getting treatment for it, then all it does is continue to be aggravated and have other things that trigger it and can cause issues.
The symptoms get worse, and they only get better when you start to address them, when you quit ignoring them, when you quit thinking that you're okay.
Mental care is every bit as important as dental care. If you don't take care of your teeth, you aren't going to have any. If you don't take care of your mental health, you're not going to have any. And unfortunately, that is often what is the precursor to suicide.
When we lose our purpose and our identity and our finances all at once, we become very broken, lost individuals. And for me, it led into deeper alcoholism, deeper pain pill addiction, and more suicide attempts because I no longer wanted to be around anymore. I didn't know who I was. Nobody knew who I was. And the guilt and the shame and the sense of no purpose led to a very dark, dark time.
I did struggle with suicidal ideation. And at some point, maybe I thought it would have been easier if I drank myself to death. Because I had life insurance and my life would have been more worth to my son and my family if I were actually dead. And that's a difficult thought to go through.
We had one of our officers, super guy, retired and became an alcoholic. And one day he killed his wife and then committed suicide.
I got a buddy that he was planning on diving off of the top of the training tower so it would be an LODD, line of duty death, and his family would be taken care of. And I'm like, what? It broke my heart.
Unfortunately, it's happening more than I think a lot of people are willing to admit.
After 26 years on the job, there were calls that he just couldn't forget. I don't think in 2012 when he retired, he understood what was going on within his brain. I think he just needed to get out of it. And so he did. But unfortunately, leaving the fire service did not calm those thoughts and those demons for him. And it probably actually accelerated some of the stuff that was going on within his brain. So 3 years after retirement, he was more withdrawn. He was pulling away, not just from me, but from my kids. And it was impacting the relationships within the home. He was suicidal in 2017 in July and had intended to hang himself by a train trestle not far from our home. And he stopped himself on the top of the trestle where he had a rope because he knew that the ducks that he had trained on the department he worked for were going to be the same individuals to find him. After his attempt at suicide and he got help, I saw him more like my husband, my best friend. You know, he was happy, he was funny, he was engaged with all of us. What I didn't understand was that was sometimes the way people prepare for suicide. And I thought we were good. He was parenting with me, we were on page. Even the night before he died, I thought we were great. And then he was gone. He left a suicide note, and that suicide note is just full of the pain. He explains it. It's how bright this man was, talking about what is going on in the brain. And when you tie that to his retirement speech in 2012, you can see that this stuff was present way back then. It just escalated over the 5 years of his retirement. And in the final sentence of his letter, he says, like people with cancer
and other life-threatening diseases. Some people suffer from equally debilitating mental illness, meaning that he was hopeless. And we know now that we can take care of him, that nobody should have to deal with that type of pain, because we can help them.
And really, in the end, the officers that die through suicide, it's kind of usually a combination of very much an angry act and a sense of hopelessness. It's a combination of the anger and the hopelessness. And they feel like they have no other choice.
In our job, you see the ripple effect so much of suicide. I heard it described as a permanent fix for a temporary problem. And I'm like, man, it so is. Because, yeah, they're going to take themselves out of the equation, out of the pain, but it's like throwing a rock out in the middle of a still pond. That rock hits, and it's the family, it's a ripple effect, it's everybody that loves them. Then you got people on the job getting jacked up because they're like, why didn't they call me? I was his best friend. I could have helped.
2 suicides, I believe, in the metro area in these last 6 years were retirees. And I think one of them was because his friend that was dear to him died by suicide a couple days before.
That pain of suicide is still present. I have a 32-year-old son now who has his first child. And at year 7, my son was struggling, and his wife called, and I show up, and there's my 6'2" handsome Marine, and he said, why did he have to do this to us? You know, that's 7 years ago. Why did he leave? And who's gonna teach me how to be a dad?
Life is not meant to be lived in the rearview mirror. If you don't have a passion and purpose for going forward, after you retire, you are going to die very quickly.
You got to have a purpose, I think, because this was our purpose for 30 years. You just can't sit around and think about what this job, the memories, because they're filed away up there.
Your purpose changes as you retire because what you focus on is different, but it doesn't mean that you're any less valuable or that what you do doesn't matter. Everyone still has a lot to offer, even if they aren't wearing the badge.
I don't care if it's teaching, I don't care if it's woodworking, I don't care if it's taking care of grandkids, but to find that purpose so that they have something to keep their minds occupied and to feel fulfilled.
Something that brings them joy, that they feel valuable about, that they feel that they can be contributing to the world. That will help prevent that loneliness, that who am I piece that often happens to people after retirement.
My recommendation for retirees would be, stay active, stay connected.
I golf, I camp, I like welding, I do little welding projects, and I live on acreage, so I have a home to take care of.
Many retirees that go back to college and get another degree.
I have always loved writing, and so I write a lot. And I find that also to be very helpful and therapeutic in processing a lot of the trauma from the job and just some of the experiences, is to put it into words.
I'm an outdoorsman. I play a ton of golf. I do all my remodeling projects around my house myself.
Work out, stay mentally and physically active, and don't withdraw into these little shells that can be damaging.
One of the most important things you can do now is make sure that you have friends outside of work.
One of my side hobbies is amateur radio or ham radio, and so some of my friends are ham radio operators, and they are not and never have been police officers. So you have to make friends that aren't police officers. You have to make friends in your social circle, at the hobbies that you're going to engage in.
Even getting involved in a small group at church where you can begin to figure out how to connect to somebody along that isn't part of that first responder community.
So it's important to really branch out, especially while you're on the job or even before you're about to retire. Lean into those other people that are outside the job, because those are the people that are going to stick with you.
How do I use the skills and abilities I've developed in this career in new ways that are rewarding and fulfilling?
You can volunteer, like I say, at the police department. You can volunteer with the Conservation Commission, churches, schools.
The younger generations can really benefit from older, retired people, whether they're tutoring in school, whether they're doing Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. I think that intergenerational piece is healing for everybody.
Volunteering is a great way to meet new people. And there are many different first responder nonprofits and organizations that would welcome your help, your experience. That is something that should be started several years before you retire.
Preparation for retirement is so vital. So many people think, I'm going to play golf and I'm going to travel and that's all I'm going to do.
Ideally, you would spend 5 years prior to your retirement starting your plan, looking for where are the gaps in my coverage, what am I not going to have.
If you're early on in your career, start learning something else completely outside of what you're doing and have an exit plan. So if you end up like I did, that plan is already in place, you've done your preparatory work, you're ready to go.
There has to be something that they begin to plan far ahead that they can transition into.
That planning process, a little bit of stress involved, but when you talk to people who've been through it, it really helps you. So that's what I would say to the younger first responders, that talk to the guys and gals that have been through it.
Financial planning for retirement is huge. You think that your pension right now is fine, is going to handle you the way the economy is, but we know that inflation and costs go up over time.
And with the 457 plans and the drop money you can throw into that, get that all figured out.
Know what your pension's actually going to provide you. I think that can alleviate a lot of the fear, knowing what you're going to be getting when you're done, whether it be a medical retirement or full retirement.
We don't know these expenses that are going to come up. And so these fixed pensions that police officers retire on over the years get smaller and smaller.
So learning how to manage your budget and to live on your retirement income before you retire is a very good idea.
When you retire, it's usually a ripple effect of everyone in your circle has to also go through the retirement with you and that experience, and it's an adjustment.
When you look at a police spouse, they've been running that household for probably years, and they've got their own way of doing things, the kids are on a schedule, and now all of a sudden you're adding this person back in, and communication is absolutely necessary.
The couple is responsible for knowing what to do after the retirement happens, and if you can prepare ahead of time, the couple is far ahead of the game. Therapy is a huge piece of it, but there are also ways that you can decide together a pros and cons list. It can be as simple as that. We like doing this, we don't like doing this. We love doing this. Begin to assemble a good list of the things that you like to do.
There needs to be a support system available for the spouses as well, because I think that'll save a lot of relationships.
If you have a family or a significant other, you got to sit down with them. You've got to talk about what it looks like now that you're home and come up with a routine that works for both of you.
There's a very special characteristic in first responders that you can't find anywhere else in the working world. You are good at making quick decisions, you're a hard worker. All of these things can transfer over to another job, another career.
There's second careers out there that officers gravitate towards.
There are lots of people who love to teach, who like to be of service, who like to be active out in the world. And depending on their physical ability and their mental health and well-being, they absolutely can have a second career.
I actually needed to work. So I started a company. It's called Seconds Count Gun Safety. I actually teach CCW classes. I've been doing it almost since I retired. I like teaching, and I like meeting the people. Even after 35 years of public safety and being a first responder, I still needed something to fulfill that void.
I realized I don't want to work inside the rest of my career. Came home and told my wife I was going to do something else. I was going to start a business. About 10 days later, I was in Las Vegas at an informational training for leveling concrete with foam injection. And so for 2 years, we just leveled driveways. 2 years after we got into it, we learned about soil work and how to improve soils, and we learned that you could lift buildings with certain injections. Yeah, we have 2 full-time installation crew, 4 part-time installation crew that help as needed, and a full-time office manager and myself right now.
The people who find a new career after retiring from a first responder career are the happiest because they're using their skills and ability.
I think it's especially important for retired first responders to continue working on their mental health and wellness so that they can live a life that is less stressful, that is more open-hearted. If they're dealing with any kind of moral guilt or survivor's guilt, it's imperative that people manage their mental health and well-being.
First responders, especially our retirees, are a hard nut to crack. They're hard to convince that they are dealing with this on some level.
I would recommend therapy to everyone. Not because you were broken, it's just a way to process things and a way to make meaning of our life experiences. And I think in emergency services and the fire service, there's a lot of experiences that we go through that don't always make sense.
You got to unpack what you went through in your career. You can't just slam the door on it and walk through a new door and pretend that the old one's not there.
It's not a sign of weakness. Some things are going to cause some flashbacks. Some things are going to create some emotions, and it's okay to talk about those emotions, and frankly, it's healthier to do so.
I go to a first responder counselor at least once a month. I still take medication. I have put myself in a treatment plan. I was drinking in the mornings to kill anxiety, and I recognized how wrong that was, so I'm involved a little bit in AA now.
You're not your diagnosis. None of us are our diagnosis, just like we're not our job title, we're not our paycheck. None of that matters. You are a human being. Let's focus on that person. Keep going to therapy, keep working on that, keep fighting. We'll get you over here, and hopefully things will start to balance out for you.
I want officers to know that you don't have to live like this. You don't have to struggle like this for the rest of your life. Recovery is possible. Myself and so many other people have done it. It is entirely possible that with just a little bit of work, you can get to a place where you are doing so much better.
This PTS is not an emotional disorder. It is a physiological change to the brain that they have not had any control over. Currently, we are able to heal it. Like, I see it all the time with the different modalities that are out there, and it is not something they have to just live and suffer with. And the brain has enormous potential to heal, and all we need to do is to connect them to the right resources.
In the film Residual, they talk about all different kinds of resources for first responders and for veterans. There's all different kinds of healing. It doesn't have to be traditional office healing. There's neurofeedback, there's EMDR, there's equine therapy, there's art therapy, there's getting service dogs. All the different kinds of modalities to deal with trauma, both physical as well as mental and emotional.
In my own journey, I went through EMDR treatment for my own post-traumatic stress, and I was surprised that it worked.
Through counseling, through prayer, through retreats, there's multiple different medical therapies that are out there now. that can truly help you and set you free from the anxiety, depression that you are carrying going into retirement.
There are so many resources out there now, whether they're free, they're paid, it's all over the internet. Whatever it is, you can Google it and you can find answers of people out there talking about these things.
There's a national communication of all of us that talk to each other that are in the fire, EMS, law enforcement, and military recovery space. So we're all trying to coordinate in that way. So the resources are out there.
So reaching out to our organization or any of the other organizations for veterans and first responders that are out there and connecting with someone who can direct them to the right resources. Because the resources are there, it's just sometimes hard for a retiree to know where to look.
A model that works for first responders struggling with mental health and substance issues is the peer support model.
The retirees who first get out, they're feeling a little lost those first few years. So to maybe have some retirees who have maybe found their service or who have found their feet, whether they're working again or whether they're volunteering, to be able to mentor those new retirees in so they don't feel alone.
You can now talk to somebody that has resources and knowledge, maybe has worked through these issues on their own, and they are willing to guide their fellow retirees to a place of better wellness.
We found that there are many people who would reach out to those that they recognized as peer support members when they were officers and would feel a great deal more comfort reaching out to them and getting the necessary help that they need.
And I've actually been talking to people about peer support teams taking that on with, hey man, when your guys retire, like it should be a benefit almost of, hey, thanks for your service. Here's a year of we're gonna check on you every month and just see how you're doing. Just like, hey, do you wanna go grab coffee? Hey, do you wanna whatever? And just somewhat keep these people involved, that you're paying them back for their service, basically.
Peer support works with just establishing that relationship and that conversation, maybe before it gets worse. Because we do know, the science shows that left unaddressed, mental health challenges and substance use challenges generally get worse.
To be able to continue to have that community through peer support for retirees, I think could be absolutely life-saving for a lot of people.
In August of 2020, I had an encounter with God that completely changed my life, and He asked me to turn my pain into purpose. God asked me to start an organization called the 1042 Project. 1042 is just a police code that just means end of watch. It's to help the officers that are at the end of the watch of their shift, but also it's for the end of the watch of their career, because we see it every single day, the struggles that first responders go through, even heading towards retirement, the anxiety and depression that starts to come, and definitely once they retire, they struggle. And at the 1042 Project, that's our sole purpose, is to give people life again and let them realize that their journey's not over. This chapter of the book may be closed, but the next chapter is brighter, it is better, and if you're intentional, it'll be a healthier time in your life.
I have an email chain with several hundred people on it. We call it the rodeo. Really old dudes eating out. And we have a breakfast every month. And we sit around and tell stories. And the funny part about that is we all talk about the good things, the funny stories. Nobody ever talks about the bad stuff. And it's a good way to, I guess, keep connected to the retirees. You know, a lot of them went through the department together and they retired. I think they enjoy the camaraderie of that breakfast and that meeting.
We have a unique program here at Des Moines PD where we have a retiree in-service. We have breakfast provided for them. They get to have the camaraderie of those around them.
And you get to listen to speakers and how the department is moving forward.
We provide them lunch, and then we have firearms instructors on scene to be able to shoot and qualify so that they can keep their concealed status as a retired law enforcement officer.
I think that's good for retirees.
I think we're on our 4th year doing this, and every year it has increased dramatically, and it has been very beneficial and well received from our retirees.
As first responders, we don't do well when another first responder is struggling, to reach out and to walk alongside them.
It's that brotherhood. You got to be checking in on your brother.
It is now our responsibility to show up and share these things, to share these lessons, to share the pitfalls that we endured, to share the growth we've seen, to give hope to these guys who are there feeling stuck and alone and afraid.
And there's a lot of people out there, they're wanting to help you. Don't be so proud that you can't ask for help. We all need it from time to time.
There's always someone there. Reach out.
Even if you're struggling, so many of us were in that exact same position that you're in right now. And I know it sounds hopeless, but there are people that know what that's like and people that can guide you to that point where you're feeling so much better and doing more things with your life. It is possible. I'm hoping that's one of the messages that we can get out here.
Retirement gives you an opportunity to become a new version of yourself, and I'll even say a better version of yourself.
People need to know they're not alone. They need to hear that there is hope after this job.
What none of us want is to see our fellow law enforcement officers suffering in retirement, because we know there's a better way. And all you have to do is reach out, and once that connection happens, everything is so much better.
If I can save one relationship or marriage, and heaven forbid, keep somebody from putting a gun in their mouth and just totally destroying their whole family, I said, then the job is done, man. You know, we found purpose.